we project our need for happiness, those three states, for example, I described earlier, on alcohol, on matter, and we want to reach something that is alive and not a dead thing like alcohol. Welcome to the Unconscious Moderation YouTube video channel. Today, I will speak about why do we drink alcohol? Why do humans drink alcohol? Up to this date, the most recent scientific research informs that humans started drinking alcohol based on the artifacts, of course, around 9,000 years ago, and probably in China. And it was fermented drinks made of honey or rice or grapes. And we can conclude that since earliest history, alcohol was human faithful companion. Physiologically and psychologically, drinking alcohol produces certain effects. So the need of humans projected on substance, which in our case in focus is alcohol, actually informs us what does a human being need, what kind of state it needs to be and achieve, but long-lasting when it reaches for alcohol. So we can, for today's purpose, distinguish three effects. One is reward feeling, which is achieved by a dopamine neurotransmitter. And that is that we feel better, that at the same time we feel we want more and more and more to be in that state. And in actual fact, that makes us reach for another glass of alcohol and another glass of alcohol. Then it is serotonin, which is closely connected to regulating moods. And usually it makes us feel elated, motivated, slightly higher, because low levels of serotonin are related to depression, so it will be something opposite to that. And also, it has an effect to the central nervous system, which slows down as we drink alcohol, and that has the effect of certain way of relaxation, which also as a consequence means lower levels of feeling anxious. So if we take that then on the symbolic level, it is simply a profoundly present and core human need to feel more motivated, to feel more relaxed and less scared. Now, when we approach to this statement from the perspective of psychoanalysis, we know for a fact, and that is empirically proven, that us feeling like that, being in these states for real, not because it's some temporary effect of a substance, can only be achieved if we allow natural maturation process to take place and we facilitate it deliberately and consciously. So Carl Gustav Jung discovered that process of psychological maturing, which he calls individuation, becoming a whole, becoming oneself, is actually natural, lifelong process, which happens to anybody, any living human, no matter which conditions they live in or what kind of potential impairments they might have, psychological or physical, it will still happen to every human. And that individuation process always has specific developmental cycle. In each developmental cycle, we acquire, or the tendencies that we acquire, more of our unconscious self. It comes to us, points out which aspects, which unconscious self is ready to be allowed to live and be expressed in the conscious dimension of our lives. And that integration brings enormously, crucially important vital energy. That vital energy that is needed for us to live our genuine identity, not how we were made by parents, grandparents, culture, and so on and so forth, environment conditions, but that core unique reality we are born with. And that is solely what brings deep feeling, lasting feeling of inner peace, fulfillment, wholeness, safety, self-confidence, and better reality check. Because when we are centered in ourselves, we don't delegate so much power to somebody else in the external life or situations. We are not hostages of anything that is going on in our environment because we are resourceful and we slowly develop that inner wisdom, which opens up our skills in shrewdness or reading the reality, analytic skills, calmness, holding the tension, not being reactive, not just acting out our automatic behavior and patterns from the past and so on and so forth. So it is very interesting that people who were in old times, like, for example, medieval times, Renaissance and so on, sort of scientific people and precursors of modern chemistry, alchemists, and mind you, Newton was one, for example. Other great astronomers, for example, were also alchemists. Although for centuries, being almost in all continents and not communicating with each other, they projected the same stages of transformation, energy transformation process, which actually is a symbol and isomorphic to the process of psychological transformation. So we project our need for happiness, those three states, for example, I described earlier, on alcohol, on matter, and we want to reach something that is alive and not a dead thing like alcohol. The same process they projected on the matter from lead, something that has no worth, and eventually through the same stages, without communicating to each other, producing gold or the stone of wisdom. It has many names. So what are the rules in our case, in psychoanalysis? What are the phases? What are our attitudes? What do we need to know in order to engage with that inner transformation process of our energy that is hooked on the dead thing, substance abuse or immoderation, in order to reach that inner state that is everlasting, and we have allowed ourselves to become more of ourselves, fulfill that developmental cycle of individuation, maturing process, and along the way, we learned and acquired a little bit of that stone of wisdom. So the first stage is to, when we are overwhelmed with anxiety, with longing for something, with that inner urge to become inspired, motivated, elated, to relax, to be less afraid, anxious, feeling safer. And we projected, let's have a drink. So first to stop, not act out, and say, who inside needs that? And allow an image to come. It might be a child, it might be a raging wolf, it might be a woman, a man, an old person. And we, as if it is a drama, theater, movie, we try to put an artistic hat of a film director, of a scriptwriter, and we engage with that image, the way they're dressed, the way they affect us. And we try to profile them and see what their history is. And it will be isomorphic to some unconscious state, unresolved, which needs that drink. It's not that all of us, our whole self, needs that drink. It's somebody who was hurt and deprived of the life here and now in the conscious dimension that needs to become relieved of their suffering. And in return, they give us this incredibly vital energy which is needed and we are lacking for our self-realization and success in that particular developmental cycle. So that first phase, when we stop, pause, not act out and simply automatically drink and drink and drink, but instead we stop and we detect. So first phase is detect. We differentiate between I need to drink to something in me needs to drink. And one day it will be one inner character, other day it will be something else. But all of these images will then fit into this incredible, ingenious mosaic of meaning, which will tell us a story, unknown story about our unknown selves, packed with vital energy. So first phase is detect. Second phase is resonance. So we relate to that inner state and say, feel, recognize, is it longing? Is it sadness? Is it anger? Is it need to be inspired, and so on and so forth? Is it just simply to relax and feel safe and not worry all the time, and so on and so forth? So we resonate with it, that inner state or feeling or character, in whichever way it is impressed on our consciousness. So detect, resonate, express. So it wants to be allowed a form in this dimension. It's not part of us. It's contaminated in our system. It wants to be seen, honored, and recognized, and allowed time and space to live in this dimension. And because the symbol is the best form of the unknown, it appears coded as a symbol in the way only us can decode best. So we start first giving it form. Whether we feel at that particular given moment that we should give it a color, because in that particular moment it is so charged with energy that only drawing red to give its identity as a character, identity of the way it affects us, impresses its presence on us, is red. Or we want to draw a person, or we want to write to them. We give it tangible physical form. And then it's not anymore, I want that drink. It is it, he, she, or whatever name we give it, that wants that drink. And then when it's not contaminated I, it is I and thou, I and the other, through the means of expression that we can differentiate. And only then we can develop full integration, full differentiation, and integrate. And this is what Jung discovered, these phases, whether it's, for example, through dream analysis, because it happens all the time. And given that dreams are most spontaneous expression of our psyche, a whole narrative, it gives us the most precious information, for example. It doesn't have to be only through dreams. So he discovered these phases. And when we express this inner need and inner state and give it form, it tells a story and gives us precise diagnostic indicator where we are exactly in this change map, change process, transformation process from matter to the real water of life, to something that can quench our thirst and saturate our hunger in that aspect of our soul, that character that was deprived and it's starving. Then I will come to the famous Jung's statement that changing our alcohol habits demands nothing less but the proper conversion of our personality, our attitudes, and our perspective on ourselves.